Welcome to the Michael Paris podcast. This is the 8th episode of the Michael Paris podcast. And for those who don't know who Josh Terry is a writer and a coach focused on productivity and lifestyle design. He helps people turn potential into power by tapping into desire and boundaries. And he has over 1.5 million followers on social media. He grew up in a small town close to the beach on the West Florida coastline and has spent the last 10 years in Austin, Texas, where he lives today, helping people optimize performance and unlock great ideas. Josh, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so let's dive right into it. First of all, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do and why it's different than other typical coaching? Let's start there.
Yeah, my background was in teaching music. And so a lot of my education on human development came from the art world, right? I went to college when I was 15, started studying music then, decided I want to become a rock star by the time I was 16, left as a workaholic at 22 and got a job in the construction industry, and then pretty quickly, transitioned back into the music industry as a teacher. And through all of that time, if you start college when you're 15, you're probably interested in learning stuff, right? You probably like information. And so I was that way. I wanted to absorb stuff. So I wanted to figure out how to absorb it faster. And also I was 15. And so a little bit at a disadvantage with some of the other students. So I wanted to figure out as much as I could, how to be a good student. And that was some of the initial sparks that pushed me towards learning and getting interested in learning theory. And then when I became a music teacher, I had to help other kids learn, right? I had to, help. I usually worked with around 8 to 15-year-olds, kind of in that range, and you run into every problem under the sun with a kid because they don't hide anything. If they have a problem, they just have a problem. End of story, and you have to fix it, or there's no progress. Adults have a little bit of, oh, I'll sweep this thing under the rug, I'll sweep that thing under the rug and try to make it work. You can very clearly see every single thing that stops human development when you work with a kid. So, kids would come in with, I don't know, uh, their first breakup and low blood sugar and a test tomorrow, and you can't actually learn anything under those circumstances. That's not a thing.
Right.
If you're 12 years old, you've just had your first breakup, and you didn't eat any meals as a result of that, and you have an exam the next day, you're not set up for absorbing new information. And so what I learned was, 90 80% of the of working with the kid was self-development or therapy, basically. How do I not teach you a piece of information, but how do I get you in a state where you could learn a piece of information? And so it made me very present to the fact that we need to put ourselves in the best situation possible so that we can progress, right? And when I was struggling myself, I went out of college a workaholic. I struggled with some food issues, depression, a lot of health issues. For me to bring myself out of that and to start performing the way I wanted to perform, I had to address, every piece of my life. So I'd say the thing that makes me a bit different is I have a pretty holistic perspective on things. I think that every pillar of your life affects your progress. So if you want to make progress in one area, sometimes you can just focus in on that one thing, but other times you have to focus on everything.
Right. We're generally only as good as our weakest component.
Yes.
But what I find interesting is, at least I'm looking back when I was a kid, and the environment that I grew up in is radically different than the environment we grew up in. Just the trajectory of technology and how fast it's progressed and how much information we're now exposed to as a kid, it must be entirely overwhelming. Given the rate of technological growth, how do you feel information is changing the way our society works and operates?
Oh man, I mean, it was astonishing working with the kids because yeah, that they're soaking this stuff up so quickly. Yeah, I'm 33, was born in 89, so I'm one of the few that is still like remembering a little bit before internet, And it, it is a different perspective. It's there's a speech, I think the speech is famous, and it's called something like "This is water," and it tells in the story, in the speech, the man tells the story of a fish that's, you know, an older fish that swims by a bunch of little younger fish. And the older fish looks at the younger fish and is like, "How's the water, boys?" And swims on. The kids are like, "That's fine, water's great." And then the one fish looks at the other and goes, "What's water?" And the idea being, we don't know the
Right,
things that are constantly around us,
right,
right? We don't know the things, we don't see them as uh, foreign or even sometimes something worth identifying. It's just the environment that we're in.
right,
So I'd say part of it is that it's the "this is water" thing, where kids don't even know what they're in right now,
right. They grow up.
meaning they don't know potential opportunities that are available to them, right? When you're swimming in opportunities, sometimes you don't realize that they are opportunities.
Correct.
On the other hand, they also have all of these tools which are visible, and they're so conscious of them. They're more conscious of them than kids that grew up without them. And so yeah, it's sort of a balance of those two things.
Right. So, I've been watching some of your that's how I came across you. I was on TikTok, and I
Mm.
think I came across a little video of yours, and I'm like, this guy has such a unique mind, and he's got such clear and pointed advice. I really felt compelled to look at your information. I only wonder why you have 1.3 million followers. So, one of your videos, you talk about how an interesting perspective on leadership, and how we shouldn't take advice from everyone, because success is a mix of skill and luck. And when people look at their own success, they look at it all as being success. They don't necessarily give credence or attention to the luck factor. So, and you have to be careful when you take advice from other people who are giving you advice that includes luck. That might not necessarily work for you. So I was wondering, do you have any sort of tips for people who do constantly get advice from those around them, how to know kind of what might work for them, what they should take in, and what they should kind of take with a grain of salt?
Yeah. So I work with adults now, and this is a problem that's even more prevalent in adults than it is with kids, but it's prevalent across everybody. And what I found is, I had, we all have unique psychologies, right? And some are a little bit more common than others, but there's variances across the board, and we have to be aware of it. And I think that what our psychology is, what our environment it is, what our experience and skills are, all define what we should do to get the best result, right? And I grew up being sort of unique in different ways. I was a creative personality. I was introverted. I liked to work. I wasn't lazy. I guess you could almost say hyper productive, wildly curious. Those were the things that I naturally was. And so common advice says you need to work very hard. Let's take that basic one, right? You need to work very hard to achieve success. Work hard and you'll get results. Well, my default mode is to work hard. And what happens when you take standard advice and you put it on top of a default mode is you get something that's possibly going too far. And I just worked as hard as I possibly could to an insane level until I got very unhealthy, right? I thought, well, I'm supposed to work hard and I must not be working hard enough if I'm not getting results, right? So
Right,
that was just a situation where my wiring aligned in such a way with the common narrative advice that I did too much in one area, and it got me bad results.
right,
Other examples of this are, some people are wired to try uncomfortable things. And if they follow the advice of do uncomfortable things, they're going to do damaging things, right?
right,
They're going to go farther, right? Some people are too nice, and they hear the advice of, well, you need to be polite.
right,
And then they get too nice, where they turn into doormats, right?
right,
They let everybody else destroy them. And so, as with kids, this is something that has to be taken into account due to psychology.
right,
With adults, it's psychology and the fact that you've probably already solved a lot of the main things that a human can solve, right? So baseline advice is, eat your vegetables, go exercise, uh, manage your budget, stuff like that. If you are an adult and you're trying to do those things responsibly and succeeding, and you want to move farther, you're going to have to listen to some more nuanced advice. You're going to have to come up with something a little bit more specific to do. And whatever it is, as you hone in, right? Life is specialization more and more in the world.
Right.
You have to get advice that is specific to your specialization. So I think that a really common dilemma that we run into is just following the 80-20 advice that's on the top layer of society. And that top layer of advice is always for the 80%. And you might not be the 80% in some
Correct.
specific circumstance.
Correct. And also, there are so many other variables to account for when you're taking advice because, for example, being nice helps people with very specific, being nicer would help someone with a very specific personality type. And if you
Yes.
have a personality type that's more aggressive, you'd resonate more being organic and working with people who do have a similar personality to you instead of trying
Yes.
to mold and be yourself something else. And it never really kind of clicks.
Yes.
So,
One other really interesting tidbit about this is if you are aggressive, being nice is going to sound like bad advice
correct.
because to your brain, you will think, oh, well, if I'm nice, then maybe I won't get what I want. And then I know I'm supposed to stand up for myself because if you're aggressive, you
Correct.
probably value standing up for yourself.
Correct.
So being nice actually might make you feel like a bad person.
Correct.
Just as if you're a doormat, the advice be nice sounds like morality. It sounds like very good and healthy, and
Yeah.
you shouldn't take it. And being more aggressive sounds unhealthy and bad, and you think, oh, I shouldn't do that. That's the one you should actually take. So what advice we take is it's a rather complex thing.
Right. Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. Even one point that I really appreciated that you mentioned was like, as we kind of progress, we start to specialize, right? When you start elementary school, you take your curriculum that everyone takes, you're in the same category as everyone else. And then as you progress forward, you go to college and you kind of hone in on a specific set of skills. And I think this kind of leads into a bigger issue, and this also kind of connects to what we were talking about earlier about the progression of data and the progression of technology. There was an element of predictability in the past where you would like before college, you would see what jobs you had, what pays the best, and then you would go to school, get a specific set of skills, and apply yourself to work for a company and get a well-paying job. Now we're in this era where the rate of change is so significant, it's almost chaotic, and our predictive power is diminishing. And you really don't know what sort of skills would be the most useful in 3 4 5 years. Even just a very weird example, but look at software engineering and computer science. It still is in high demand, but now you have areas like cybersecurity that's literally taking over the demographic to become the most needed area in the technological domain. And then you have external factors like our environment is changing so quickly, and you have stuff like COVID that act as a stress test to allow you to see how you can reuse skills when you need. And I think it's a mix of, I think going to college now and finding a very specific and narrow skill set is not necessarily as appealing as it was 30, 40 years ago, where we need to have sort of skills that are abstract, they're malleable, and they have many use cases. You also want to be able to apply those skills to a diverse set of domains. So, and my philosophy is the less you can touch it, the better. So if you're working with zeros and ones and you're a programmer, you're doing computer science, or you're writing, or you're doing graphic design, you have less constraints. You're not tied to location. Um, you can operate remotely. You can reuse your skills. You can become a programmer. You can become a gamer. You can become a system admin. So we're ending into this really interesting world where finding definitely honing in is important, but also having a sort of a career portfolio gives you more sustainability and just more survivability as things change in unpredictable ways. Yeah, so moving on here. So when you do coaching, give me an example of the kind of issues that you tend to work on, and also who generally acts as your source of inspiration, and why do they inspire you, and how does that affect your work?
Yeah, so I can actually touch on that specialization thing a little bit if you like. The thing with specialization and generalization is those are just basic words, right? That can have a bunch of complexity inside of them, right? So you can have a specialist that knows everything there is to know about a particular topic. So is that a generalist or a specialist? Well, you could say they're a generalist within the field, right?
Right.
And they're a specialist in overall work environment, you could say. And I think more and more we're coming to some era of being a specialist at yourself, being a specialist at your unique set of abilities that you can operate the best on. And sometimes that looks like a specialist, and sometimes it looks like a generalist. So these words are getting kind of mixed around. And I think that's kind of what you're touching on there is we have to broaden out in a whole bunch of different ways, right? That's absolutely necessary as technology is accelerating. We have to learn about all the tools that are available to us. And at the same time, have to hone in more and more on what can we actually offer? What can we actually do? So yeah, that's kind of my thought process on it.
100%. I mean, what you're saying is true. It's all relative to the context in which you're discussing it. And I think it's more about, probably, to look at it a little more abstract, it's more about a mindset where you're never complacent. And even if you're constantly specializing, you're also able to adjust and readjust that focus on specializing on something in particular as your environment changes.
Yes.
Yeah. Now moving on to the coaching stuff, and you have such incredible insight. I'm really curious to know who inspires you and how that translates into your practice.
Well, a lot of people. I was a total sponge as a kid, and read in a lot of different areas. I mean, musical composers were a huge inspiration to me for years. Today, I'm inspired by the people that are doing great things. Elon Musk, Jack Dorsey. These people have done incredible things.
Are they getting along now? I don't know if they're fighting. I don't know what's going on. Are they?
Yeah, I think I saw some drama on Twitter, but I mean, go for it. I'll watch the gladiators.
Elon is throwing fuel on everything.
It's super entertaining.
Crazy.
Uh,
He's
yeah, I
smart.
believe in a world that becomes more interesting over time, so I like it.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny to watch. But no, it's hard for me to say any one particular area. Let's see, what could I say? I mean, I'd say I've pulled from fields in a lot of ways.
Interesting.
So it was a really big unlock for me to start learning a little bit about Eastern philosophy at a point in my life. And the greats in their side of there, of course, inspired me. It was a really big unlock for me to just learn about world history in a way. It was a
Right.
big unlock for me to study music. It was a big unlock for me to start exploring diet. It was more subject matter areas, I think, and
Yeah,
then
and
there's just infinite inspiration within them.
Yeah, and I find what interesting about you is that you do have a very strong element of curiosity and you do tap into a lot of different industries. And that probably puts you in a small demographic of people who, usually, like someone who likes computer science will like math, these things are connected. And
Hmm.
then, just you like history, you like physics, you like philosophy. And I think that probably gives you some pretty unique perspectives. And that explains why 1.3 million people are interested in what you have to say. Now,
Yeah,
for someone who, sorry, go ahead.
it has to do with the I think a little bit personality type. I'm super open, creative personality, and part of what creative types tend to do is they try to come up with something unique.
Right.
And the only way we can come up with something unique is by sourcing from different areas to create new combinations, right? And so I'm naturally drawn to, you know, a lot of different places, and it enables me to develop that skill set of, connecting the dots between different things to come to, different conclusions. And some people that's not their jam at all. Like it's completely useless to them. But for me, each little piece has been, valuable to the whole.
Yeah, definitely well said. And for someone like you who's intense, you're working all the time, you're always focused. I want to take a let's completely shift in direction here and talk about the simple things in life. Tell me some of the things you enjoy doing that, just make you enjoy living.
Paddleboarding. I really enjoy paddleboarding.
Paddleboarding, cool.
Yeah. Um, let's see. What else do I? I'm probably gonna do some acro yoga tonight, which I actually haven't done acro yoga in about 7 years, so that'll be nice to do a little
That's
bit of
a
that.
That's very antithetical to your introverted personality. Because isn't that like you work with someone on acro yoga, right?
True. I do like humans. I'm an introvert that loves humans.
Interesting.
So yeah, and I like other things in the yoga community. I do a lot of breath work stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's the type of stuff I'm attracted to.
Honestly, I used to be so just not interested in yoga, and I
Mhm.
used to think it was weird. And
Yeah.
even like someone who I looked up to, like Sam Harris, who he would talk
Hmm.
about spirituality all the time and yoga. I always found that a weird side to him. But now
Yes.
as I'm growing up and life is more complicated and there's so much moving parts, I'm starting to appreciate like even like in the shower, I turn off the lights sometimes and I just try to
Yep.
like block off all my senses. And then there's an appreciation that I've started to develop for that. And yoga is definitely something on my radar. And some of the things that I found weird were just because I was ignorant to them. And yeah, that's certainly one of them.
Yeah, a big piece is like awareness and sensitivity, right? And by sensitivity, I mean like just like how attuned you are to noticing stuff, right? And like for example, I used to think that the red light thing was dumb, and like make sure you turn off all your screens before bed and things like that. And I was a very I had a very like hyperactive mind, and I was very locked into the logical side of my brain, and I never noticed when I was resting. I just was working all the time.
Right.
And but then as I grew healthier, I thought I started to black out my room, and then I started to sleep better from blacking out my room. And that heightened my sensitivity to noticing when I wasn't sleeping well, right? And then from there I thought, okay, well, let's try some of this stuff. Let's turn off the screens and let's get a red light. I'm gonna try and like read a little bit before bed as opposed to look at a screen. And it's amazing. Like I remember reading for maybe half an hour or an hour and being just about to go to bed and thinking, oh, there's this one thing I forgot to write down that I need for the next day. So I opened up my phone to look, and I mean almost nausea, just getting blasted with the screen after having like truly relaxed and adapted to the red lights. I was like, this is awful.
After
Now
you
I see why
desensitize
people
yourself.
don't do this.
Right. Right.
Um,
That's
and it's that I had to go through a period of development to get to the point where I'd even notice that a screen before bed was, bothersome to me. And I think that's the case with a lot of these things,
right.
yoga and breath work and these other things that people try. Depending on the stage of your life that you're in, you could not even notice the effects. It's just totally just blow by you. And as time goes on, you start to realize the ones that work for you.
Right. And in a broader sense, I think what you're saying is tapping into your subconscious is powerful. We
Yes.
operate in so many ways that we don't even realize some of the damaging stuff. And becoming more sensitive to your subconscious is really key to taking control of your life. Now, we're running out of time here. As much as I'd love to talk to you for hours and hours, if people wanted to get in touch with you, how would they follow you?
Yeah,
Where?
follow me on Instagram, Josh Terry Plays. That's my handle. That's the main place. Also, I've got joshterry.community, which is the main thing that I'm putting together. It's a productivity community, and we meet every Monday, 7 p.m. CST, and we chat about whatever concepts we can do to get ourselves moving and making stuff.
Amazing. Josh, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. And hope we talk again soon. Thank you.
Sure thing. Sure thing. It was a pleasure. Thank you.